Okay, week 2, 2025 fly tying. We did an olive over tan Craft Fur Minnow. And again, pretty easy, great fly for warm water species. You can make them bigger, you can make them smaller, you can do, one color, two color, three color. You can get pretty creative with this fly. It's not much to it, again, and you can imitate a lot of different species of baitfish, but you can do saltwater, freshwater, warm water. We're doing unweighted today. I'm going to start my thread here right up by the eye, and I'm just going to move it on back. Again, doesn't have to be neat. We are just getting our thread on the hook. I'm going to move it on back to right where the bend starts, which on this guy is right about at the point. This is a fulling mill streamer stripper size 4. You can use, I like this style of hook on these. It helps keel it. It's got a wider gap, so like a Gamakatsu B10S. These, I think it's like a Firehole 811, something like that. But yeah, we're gonna start, and our tail is craft fur. Go figure, Craft Fur Minnow. So we're gonna cut a bunch off of the hide here, so you get this big hide, and we're gonna cut some off. Now this, as we talked about, has long tapered fibers. It has under fur, so I'm gonna grab this about in the middle. I don't really want all this stuff. You can save it if you want for other things. But we are not using the full length of this. We're doing a pretty small fly, so it's quite a bit that's in there. And then also, when I'm not using the full length of these fibers, so if I hold it down here, that's a pretty long fiber. We're not putting all of that on here. So what I'm gonna do, it's got a nice taper to it. I don't know if you can see that with the white background, but I'm gonna pull some of these long ones out and then restack them in there. So they're still tapered, but not, not as tapered. It just helps with getting good proportions on these smaller streamers, I find. So I'm gonna make this tail about a hook shank and a half in length. And I'm gonna set that down right where I want it. Grab it with my left hand, do a nice loose wrap, capture everything, another loose wrap, start putting tension on it. I'm gonna wrap forward a bit with nice heavy tension. This stuff will want to roll on your hook, which can be very annoying. And what I'm gonna do, since this stuff is a little unruly, is I'm gonna fold it back, wrap up to about where my front stack's gonna be, and then I'm gonna recapture it with a couple loose wraps. Just a little easier to handle these fibers. This stuff is not nice to your scissors also. So if you use a lot of it, a tungsten scissor is nice. So I'm going to bind that down, and you don't have to do that. You can cut it here. You end up with a bump. It does get pretty well hidden, but I don't know. I like to wrap it all the way up. Our next material is going to be a UV polar chenille. This one, since we're doing green and kind of tan, I really like copper in our waters up here for a flash color. And this is their, what do they call this? Rusty copper UV. So it's got some UV fibers in there. We're gonna take the core of this, try to pull as much of the flash back as you can. Capture that core. Wrap our thread up to where we're gonna stop. And we're gonna do our front stack. again, do a little half hitch, just easier for me. And I'm gonna take this, and just like the feathers that we wrapped on the big hole demon, I'm gonna pull all these fibers back, and it's just gonna help me not trap as many fibers. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change it here. I'm gonna do touching turns on these, because this is not a very thick chenille. It doesn't have a lot of fibers, so it's not going to build up a ton of bulk. You know, if you could do this with a brush too if you wanted. Most of them though are going to be pretty thick. And so I'm going to take this up to right about here, about 1.5 inches back, and I'm going to manipulate these fibers so that hopefully I don't capture too many. I'm going to capture it again, 2 over the top, fold the material back, you know, a couple in front just to lock it down. Cut that guy off. Now you can manipulate these now. I'm going to wrap back over that tag end and really make sure it doesn't come out, because if you catch anything with teeth, it can pull that out. So I'm going to take a little bit of Velcro here and just unstick any fibers. Now these get kind of wild. If you wet your fingers, you can usually get them to calm down a little bit, but they're not wanting to, so you can just get annoyed at them. Like these guys, they're gonna bug me, but whatever. You know what? Just cut them off. So now for the front, we're doing a 2-tone. We're doing green up top, tan on the bottom, and same thing goes with the green and the tan for up front. Is I'm going to pull all that under fur out, and then we're going to be reverse tying this craft fur. So again, if I'm not using the full length and I leave this original taper in here, it's really wispy. There's not enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these long ones and I'm going to pull them out. I'm going to restack them so that it's not as tapered. And when you do that, you just get a little bit thicker head up here, and it just transfers a whole lot easier. You can see it that these are all uneven, so I've taken a bunch of taper out, but there's still quite a bit of taper. So again, we want to reverse tie this. So I'm going to tie this in tips facing forwards, but I still need to get my measurement here. And that's about where I want it to come back to. So I'm going to transfer this, and I'm going to cut it pretty close to my fingers here. And I want a nice clean, just a couple, nice clean cut. And I'm going to transfer this. So I'm going to push my thumbs together. I'm going to turn it around. And I goofed up my cut, so I'm going to come back in and cut those. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to set it on the fly, and I'm going to pinch it right on top. And again, just like the last video, we're going to do loose thread turn, and then slowly pull down. Get a couple loose ones in there. Make sure it's still on top of the hook. We don't want it to roll around too much. And then give it some tension. Now you'll see I'm supporting this hook. I don't want it to pull down, because that will cause it to slip sometimes. Now I'm going to work my thread back, because again, we're not going to do what's called a a hollow tie. We're not going to tie in front of this with thread. We're going to tie over the top of it like a bullet. Now I have a rotary vise, so I'm going to flip my fly over. If you don't have a rotary vise, you can take your hook out, or you can just come in and do it on the bottom side. But same exact idea on the bottom. We're going to take a little clump of tan. I'm going to cut some more off the hide here. Again, hold it in about the halfway spot. Pull all this fluffy stuff out because we don't want it. I'm gonna find those long fibers, pull those out, restack them. And the nice thing is I can measure this against the green one, and I want it just a pinch, like a couple millimeters shorter. Typically on these minnows, your belly material is going to be shorter than your back material. So again, I'm going to take that, set it down, match up the butts of the green to the tan, pinch it right where it needs to be, loose wrap, little tension, loose wrap, little tension, and then I can support everything, give it some good tension, and wrap back and create a little thread valley, so that when we fold these over, we can capture them and the thread won't want to fall off the front. Now you can use all sorts of things as a what they call a reverse tool. You can use a hollow pen. They make special tools. I'm just going to use my hands. So I'm just pulling fibers back and holding them. Then I'm going to pinch from the front, make sure everything's even and where I want it. Now it'll help if you spin your bobbin counterclockwise, so that when you come up, your thread wants to roll back. See how it's rolling this way and not this way? Just helps you grab these slippery synthetic materials. I'm going to do 2 wraps over the top just to hold everything in place. At this point, you can come in and manipulate these. Like it was a little rolled over to the other side, so I'm just going to use my thumbnail and some pressure and move it around. So now that I like where everything is, couple wraps, some good tension, then I'm going to carefully drop down to the eye, lock everything in, grab my whip finish tool, a little 4-turn whip finish. Now these I would 100% glue. Synthetics tend to be slippery. They are synthetic. So now once this gets wet, it kind of, it'll get that nice teardrop shape. But that's the, I'm gonna say, mini Craft Fur Minnow. Again, I do these up to 1/0. You add more craft fur in there. So like a 1/0 will have a tail, the Chenille craft fur, Chenille craft fur, and that, again, doing that extra craft fur adds a space where you can change colors, you can add hot spots, you can do all sorts of stuff. So, all right, that was week 2, Craft Fur Minnow.